Good morning. Welcome to the Lorraine County Board of Commissioners meeting of October 13th, 2021. This meeting will now come to order. We will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
And our inspirational word for the day comes from the book of James. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
Thank you, Commissioner Lundy. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Here.
Commissioner Moore?
Here.
Commissioner Lundy.
Here.
Okay, A, Certificate Atonement Day, and I will turn it over to Commissioner Lundy.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to call forward Imam Paul Hassan to talk about Atonement Day here in Lorraine County. Good morning to you, sir.
Same to you. Same to you. Same to everybody.
Good morning.
What's the procedure?
If you just would give us a general overview of...
Do I need to give my, I used to.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I've been used to giving my
Absolutely.
name and address, but I guess nobody
that's
asked
fine.
me. So it's,
What's your name and address?
oh, okay. You need that? I guess they always ask this. That's changed?
Yes, that's great
that's
for the
fine.
record, sir, if
Sure.
you want to give us your name and address.
Oh, I mean, nobody asked, so I just thought I didn't want to this time. Anyway.
Just so you know, it's because it's not the public comment section, and you're an invited speaker, you don't have to.
I know.
But it's always nice to do so.
Oh, okay.
It helps the clerk out, basically.
Okay. Paul Hassan, H-A-S-A-N, last name. 1323 West 9th, Lorraine, Ohio, 44052. Thank you. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, we bear witness that there is none worthy of the one God. We call on him by many names. Allah, Jehovah, Lord Christ. But we know that he answers on all the names that we call on him by. I want to thank the commissioners, obviously, for allowing me to address you for a few minutes. But I want to say, before I forget, there's two people that I want to recognize that were so special and that did so much for our community, did so much for me. Ms. Dottie Washington, who passed away, I think, a couple of days ago, and my sister, who passed away 2 weeks ago. I guess you would say, why Dottie Washington, why my sister? And we're talking about the Holy Day of Atonement, holistic solutions for holistic problems. The problem that we see in our country, obviously, and these two women exemplified holistic, solutions, holistic problems that we're having in our community. Our problems are holistic, and they need to be solved by the spiritual versus the kind of things that we see in our community. Young men who are committing major crimes or killing themselves, suicide rates with young people all over the country, and we think it's very important that the solution is not government, the solution is not the police department, the solution is not parents who are doing good things for their children, but the solution is holistic. It's a spiritual problem, so it is not going to be solved until we go in as the Christ spoke about it. I'm not trying to teach a sermon. I'm just talking about the reality of what's going on in our community. And I want to thank the commissioners, obviously for many years, Mr. Moore and Mr. Lundy and Teresa, my friend for many years. This important day that we recognized 26 years ago. Black men went to D.C., not that they were against the government, that they were trying to protest against anybody, but we wanted to let the world know that we want to be better men, better fathers, better brothers, better uncles, better cousins, just better human beings that we wanted to be. We took upon it ourselves, and we did. And we want to continue to remember that, but our problem today is that even we call on all men, not just black men. We calling on all men to be better men, to treat our women with respect, to treat our women. The God tells us. He said, "Tell me three things." He said to the prophet, "Tell me he asked the prophet, tell me three things that respect, who I should respect the most. He said, the woman. He said, who next? He said, no, excuse me. He said, your mother. He said, who next? Your mother. And he asked him again, prophet, who next? Your mother. 3 times. And he said, who next? Your father. So the respect that we should give our women that we're not giving our women in this country, in this day, that we need to start doing. So Holy Day of Atonement, we're atoning for our sins. We're atoning for we don't get along with each other. We don't speak to one another. Just maybe that day in this county, in this city, we can say, you know what, I'm not working with Mr. Lundy, I'm Mr. Moore, and the new commissioner, can't pronounce her name, but don't want to mispronounce her name, and I'm not trying to get in anything. I'm just saying it's a day of atonement for all of us, and this is why we come together every year for the last 26 years, is to call the city, to call the county together. Let's work together. Let's respect one another for our children, because as long as our children don't see us working together, they don't see us doing things together, well, you can expect the same kind of things that you see what's going on in our community. So I want to thank commissioners. I want to thank you again for many years of respecting us and allowing this evidence come to speak to you and recognize this such important day. Thank you again. May the blessings and peace of God be upon you and upon all of us. I greet you again. Assalamu alaikum, which only means the peace and mercy of God be upon you and all of us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
We have a certificate of recognition to the Lorain County Organizing Committee for the Day of Atonement. I'll just read a portion of it here. Holistic Solutions for Holistic Problems, celebrating the 27th anniversary of the historic Million Man March, the Holy Day of Atonement. Join this celebration October 16th, 2021, virtually or in person. City of Deliverance International Ministries, that's at 1897 East 30th Street in Lorain. That'll be at 1 p.m. this Saturday. There are many challenges facing humanity and require unity of people coming together that results in justice and peace in all forms. So we can get this to you before you leave today, Paul. Okay, or this year
Certificate.
certificate.
Yeah, the place of where it's going to be taking place at, we had some problems in terms of we weren't able to accommodate it, deliverance. So it would be at God's Kingdom, and I have a flyer for you.
Okay.
That's okay. Don't worry about changing that.
Okay.
Don't worry about changing that, but it had to be changed because of some logistics. So I need a flyer and for the new location.
Okay.
And it's on Zoom as well.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Commissioners. Ready? Okay, moving on to B, resolutions.
Number 1, investments.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Number 2, appropriations.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Number 3, transfers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Number 4, advances, repayments. There were none. Number 5, requisitions.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Hey, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Number 6, travel.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Number 7, bills.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Hey, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Next item of business is number 8, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within the jurisdiction of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. At the conclusion of today's board meeting, the commissioners may recess into an executive session to discuss personnel, new hires, and board appointments. Okay, moving on to number 9. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution into the record.
Accept the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorize necessary tax levies and certify them to the auditor for 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Next item of business is number 10.
Appointing an interim representative to Region 19 for representation to the foundation established by the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding to receive and distribute proceeds from the National Opiate Litigation Settlement.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board?
I was just going to say, I don't know if Dan wants to give us kind of an overview. This is obviously the opioid litigation that we've been involved in. During the course of the litigation, we've been told not to really talk about it, but now we've reached a different stage.
And we're also appointing somebody. Maybe you can talk to that too.
I struggle with the word overview because this is an extraordinarily,
Yes or no?
I know what the resolution is. It's an extraordinarily complex topic. Let me start by saying this. There is still a significant amount of litigation going on against opioid manufacturers and opioid distributors. This particular resolution applies to a settlement that was reached with 3 of the largest manufacturers that would otherwise have been part of the opioid trial that's going forward in Cleveland right now. It is a multi-district class action litigation. There was a settlement negotiated that we talked about, I believe, in late August, early September, and the board approved the joining of the settlement for those governmental entities in Ohio and New York. That agreement has been entered into, has been accepted by the court, so now it is going into effect. One of the terms of that agreement is that some of the settlement funds, which will be paid out by the opioid manufacturers over a period of 18 years, will be sent to regions within the state. The state's carved up into, I believe, 19 regions, and there are various counties that form a region. The idea in the settlement agreement is that there should be a multifaceted approach to combating the opioid epidemic, both at the municipal level, county level, state level, and this regional level. As the settlement agreement is becoming effective, it became important to appoint a representative for our region to talk to the state and talk to the plaintiffs' counsel that's doing this, and sort of lead the discussion as how our region will respond and use the monies that will be made available. I have a feeling that made this more complex for the 3 of you than clarifying, but I don't really know how to explain it yet. This is a temporary appointment for a commissioner to be the point person on setting up the structure of the counties in our region to cooperate and figure out how to strategize the use of the funds that will be made available under the settlement agreement.
But we're appointing a Medina County Commissioner, William Hudson, to that position. I think it was an agreement with the counties that.
Yeah, we had a call last week with a number of prosecutors and some commissioners. Mr. Hudson volunteered to be the interim representative for our region. We've discussed it amongst ourselves. I've discussed it with each of the 3 of you. No one had an objection to that. There were no objections raised to Mr. Hudson doing this. He has some experience in working out multi-contract deals already in prior deals that were done there. And so he's going to be the interim head until the lawyers can form a more permanent structure for what this region will look like. And it primarily gives us a single point of contact for that purpose.
All right. And it's Ashland County, Erie, Huron, Lorraine, Medina, Richland, and Wayne counties. So that's our region for 19, or we're Region 19. Yep. So even though the resolution that we're reading is 2 lines, the actual resolution's a page long with a lot of details.
And the agreement is significantly longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to serve with Commissioner Hudson on the WAC. I think he's a man of good standing, and so I feel comfortable with him at least being the, the representative as we work through the process.
And he's been engaged in one conversation I had with him was on this conference call we had. He's been engaged with the state. He's really been kind of out in front of this. I think he was engaged with what I would call class counsel, the plaintiff's representative counsel for this litigation. So he's up to speed on it. He wants to get moving on it. He stressed several times that he anticipated this would be a temporary position. I think he just wants to make sure it gets off on the right foot, and then we'll move forward. But this will be, so everybody understands, this is going to be a long-term process that we're just at the very beginning of.
And just so everybody's aware, that when the settlement dollars do come in, and they will come in slowly.
Yes.
Those dollars will be used to deal with addiction and, mental health issues in the county. As I always point out about the epidemic during the pandemic has overshadowed everything, but the epidemic is still very significant in this county. And in conversation just with our county jail alone, we are detoxing about 24% of the inmates that end up in our county jail. 24% of them are being detoxed. Our county jail's like a detox facility, believe it or not. Close to 47% of the individuals that are in our county jail need to go through a mental health evaluation or assessment. And that's another part of the argument that I always made in the past when we merged the two boards, that if you have an addiction issue, you probably have a mental health issue. If you have a mental health issue, you probably have an addiction issue. There's a lot of co-occurrence that takes place. So that's just at our jail alone. And, I was talking with the coroner this morning for a while. Obviously, his office is very busy with, the overdose deaths. And we continue to see those at a very high rate of people overdosing. Thankfully, to Narcan, a lot of people are surviving. But it's still a very serious problem here. We still have a high-intensity drug activity designation, a federal designation for this county, not something that we're proud of. But the reality is that there's a lot of drug activity that takes place in this county. We've put a lot of great resources in place to get the drug dealers off the streets. We're now making sure we're trying to get the resources in the right place so that people who are ready to recover get on the road to recovery, and hopefully through some good services like that and hopefully some good intervention from the man above, we'll be able to get this thing under control so that we can get people back to their families and back to their jobs.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Stormwater Management District, the next item of business is number 11. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution into the record.
Requesting proposals for the drone technology services for ditch viewings in Lorraine County in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 6131.10 and will be paid from the professional services account.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion was made by Young, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board?
I see Don's here.
You want to talk drones, Don?
If you have any questions or comments to address.
So we're looking to get proposals in, not to purchase drones, but to hire companies to come in and provide the service.
Yes, at this time, we are not knowledgeable enough to really, I think, invest in equipment and licenses, so it's best that we go ahead and procure these services. There are several companies that exist within the county and around that can provide this service as we become more accustomed to it. And we can later make a determination if it's something that should bring in-house or keep it out as a consulting service. Right now, we project 4 or 5 times a year is probably what we're looking at.
And the purpose is to,
It is to be able to better observe ditches, and when we do ditch viewings, to have them be a little more useful for everybody rather than sending out the Board of Commissioners through the woods. Well, I will say all 3 of you did outstanding at our last one, properly outfitted and going through and fighting mosquitoes and whatnot. I think it's more beneficial, and we could see more using a drone and being in a place such as either the boardroom where people are easily able to ask questions and to be able to have conversations about what's going on rather than trying to do it in the middle of the woods, a farm field, or mud hole.
Did find some good deer stands, so.
We did, and some good tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Don, we had a discussion about this in your office, and I think it's a good idea because it gives you the overhead perspective of it in the air, because, you know, you can't get us up in those deer stands to give us the overhead look. So, yeah, it's a good idea, and we've actually used one of the drone companies in Lorraine County, so we know that it can be done this way. We've used them for something else, so it's a good idea.
And there are also other things that drones might be able to do, such as with other attachments like LiDAR or whatnot, where we might be able to get survey data, elevation data that could give us some information. Again, this is our first foray into it. I know we've had a couple of false starts in the past, but with the revisions in the revised code, making it clear that this is something that we can use as a tool for our ditch viewings, I think it's in all of our interest to use technology when it makes sense. And to me, and from hearing from the board, this is one of those times.
Yeah, I think Don will be happy to see the vote here today, Madam President, because I've been bugging him about this for years. I always say when the leaves drop, that's the best time to get out there with the drone and really get some good shot of these ditches. And, yeah, we had an interesting ditch viewing recently. Of course, Dave had all his hunting gear, so he was ready to go. And the mosquitoes got a hold of me that day. Wow, they
Yeah, they
just bit
did.
me alive. So, but I think this will, give us a much better perspective and really make it possible to see some areas that we ordinarily wouldn't be able to literally get to.
Yeah, and
I do enjoy
Just
it.
to defend Don, it's not that he wants to make you guys walk all of that, but the ability to use drones wasn't available to us until the law changed this
Right.
year, so.
Yeah, because
It's
we
not,
have
it's
to.
not all his fault.
Yeah, but we have to, by statute, we have to visit, and that's.
Not
why-
anymore, yeah.
Right, with this statute now, okay. Because that was at least a half mile through the woods just trying to,
yeah, and we've got
that
a
was a
couple
biz-
of ditches coming up. One of them's going to be in
You got one in
excess of 5
December?
miles.
you got one in December?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
November. November's the last one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, no.
Oh, the hearing's December 7th. Okay,
Correct.
Okay,
And I don't think we'll do the 5-mile hike in January.
well, I'm sure the sheriff department might have some quads, that'd be okay.
And these drones require a lot of certifications. It's not just, a hobby thing where, you get some kid that goes out with a drone. I mean, you have to
Correct.
be properly certified. FAA has a lot of requirements around this too, and
Yes, we've actually been working closely with the Assistant County Prosecutor's Office. Dan's been kind enough to let me work with Lee again, and so we're putting in a couple of citations referencing both the licensing requirements, insurance requirements, as well as the Code of Federal Regulation that actually oversees this, as well as in our own rules and regulations that we're going to want to indemnify and protect the county.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
I,
Thank you very much, Board.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to Board of Elections. Thank you, Don. Moving on to Board of Elections, the next item of business is number 12. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution into the record.
Commit to issue funds in the amount of $83,209.22 to assist with additional operation costs due to the COVID-19 pandemic to be paid from the ARP other expenses account.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Teresa, there was a comma. I forgot to tell you about that. Oh. Right there. Sorry. Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
I,
Okay, moving on to Veterans. The next item of business is number 13. Madam Clerk, please read the resolution into the record.
Support the enactment of the statutory provisions authorizing veteran service commissions to pay for emergency provisions for veterans with a county-issued credit card as to ensure that the veterans can receive support in times of emergencies at whatever time they may occur.
Move to approve.
second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Moore. Any discussion from the board?
Yes, speaking with Jacob Smith, he said, hey, should I come today? He was extremely busy. I says, no, I can cover it for you. So not to pay insult to this board, but he's been working really hard. I went and met with the Veteran Service Committee on end of July. And they came up and they said, look, we've been having our ups and downs with this board in regards to funding. And Jacob read this to me. It's ORC 301.27B1. He said, in the case of public children's service agencies, expenses for purchases for children for whom the agency is providing temporary emergency may, pursuant to the section 515316 of the revised code, children in temporary or permanent custody of this agency, the children in a planned permanent living arrangement, basically they have the authority to use the county credit card to provide housing or take care of children. And I said, well, why don't we just, because we were talking about they have homeless vets that come in off the street. And we're talking about, even though it's the Veteran Service Commission, they can't just write checks. The statute will not allow it. And I think they're allowed to get up to 3.6 million, and our budget's only 2.8. So what we did about, I think, 6 weeks ago is we increased their credit line. We voted for it to $5,000, and that was in anticipation of this. They presented a 2-page letter, and they presented we need to pass a resolution to support it, and I'm sure Commissioner Lundy's familiar with this. And I talked to Senator Nate Manning to make sure that he helps push us through. It's called the Joint Committee Agency Rule, if you remember, JCAR, and that's where this is heading. In order for this to make a rule change so that we can help our veterans, our Veteran Service Commission help our veterans that are homeless, and they've had it happen. 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock on a Friday, a veteran will come in and say, I am lost in life and I need help. Well, with government, you have to run through a process to get the check. Fortunately, they've had a lot of people in our business community that has donated a lot of money to these guys to fill this gap. But we have the ability to reimburse that credit card if we can at least get the state of Ohio to allow us to change in a rural committee, and which is what this is going to do. And it's really thanks to Metropolis Consulting working with us and Nate and Senator Manning. Now, if it starts to slow down, Nate says, don't worry, I'll put a bill on there to help speed it up. So the bottom line is this is step one to do something for our Lorain County veterans. If this does pass, this not only affects our Lorain County vets, it affects all 88 counties. So our veterans statewide will benefit from what we're doing here today. So that's why I'm very proud to be a part of this. I just hope Columbus will see the need that needs to be filled in our community. Thank you.
I had the opportunity to have a conversation, with Jacob with it as well, too. He said he had conferred with you on it, and, certainly JCAR has the ability to make these changes. So what we start here hopefully will carry out throughout the remaining 88 or 87 counties in Ohio. Nowadays it's almost impossible to buy anything without a credit card, right? So, the example Jacob gave was, somebody came into their office on like you said, a Friday afternoon or something, and they need a new pair of boots, right? It's wintertime. How are you going to be able to process all that? So to have that card availability for that purpose certainly will be extremely helpful. We had upped the limit to $5,000 because of concerns of if there's travel involved, if there's repairs that need to be made to, one of their vans, emergency purposes, that they can get that taken care of. And they've always, done a good job of managing things quite well there. But nowadays you have to purchase, a lot of things, online as well too. We don't like the online purchases. We've had those discussions before. But the reality is, if you don't have the credit card so you can immediately take care of that need for the veteran, it makes it difficult. So this will now make it possible to help that veteran in need.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Lundy.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to lobby session. Welcome to the lobby portion of our meeting. In order to speak on the topic of your choice, you will have had to fill out a slip and turn it into the clerk. We have one slip today. Mr. Charles Oakletree, you are up.
You ready?
Yep, state your name.
All right, good morning, Charles Oakletree, 344 10th Street. I'm here again. Just to reiterate the point that I've made the last several weeks and will continue to until we see a resolution. When Commissioner Hung's improper relationship with former 911 Director Harry Williamson was made public in early August, many members of her own party called and expected her to resign. So she could resolve this matter privately with her family, hoping to spare them further pain and embarrassment. It has been almost 3 months since Mr. Petticourt was notified of the relationship, and yet Commissioner Hung has persisted to ignore calls for her to do the right thing and resign. The relationship alone was reason enough for her removal, showing a clear lack of discernment, but her apparent lack of humility and compassion while refusing to resign shows just how out of touch she has become. As stories have been published over the last several months, countless county residents have shared with me their great disappointment and disgust by her actions, and all agree she is not fit for the job. People have been asking how she can allow her family to continue being subjected to the follow-up stories in the local papers, and multiple discussions that are being conducted on social media. Again, with the addition of the former administrator's lawsuit, it's inevitable that further embarrassing details regarding her misconduct will be made public in the coming months, only further hurting her reputation and all those close to her. Any reasonable public servant would conclude that the best thing for themselves, their family, and the community would be to step down. Will you resign today? It's a rhetorical question, of course. Public service is both a privilege and a duty, but it is not a right. We serve on behalf of our residents. This representative form of government has served America well for over 250 years, but is in serious jeopardy. Our younger generations are ready to burn it to the ground as they have lost trust in our governments and institutions because of misconduct like this that they believe goes unaccounted for. They have all become generally apathetic and even worse, hostile towards our institutions and values. If this continues, we're going to lose everything the best of America has to offer. As our traditions and values cease to exist, they will be lost for generations and likely never to be regained. We have an obligation to help restore trust so that our children and grandchildren can enjoy a promising future. We all must continue to strive for something better, each leading by example, always taking responsibility for our actions, no matter the outcomes, and that's for better or for worse, of course. Hopefully, they can begin to believe that justice and honor are possible and worth fighting for. All of us have a duty to regularly examine ourselves and our motivations, making certain we are all doing what we can for those we serve. So for the sake of your honor, your family's privacy, and the confidence of Lorraine County residents, I ask you to do the right thing. You must accept responsibility for your misconduct and resign immediately.
Okay, your 3 minutes is up,
Can we
sir.
count on that today?
Okay, moving on.
Well, it looked like there was some head turning. Did you guys know you had to fill out a paper to speak?
No, we called yesterday, we were just told.
Would you guys like to fill out a piece of paper right now so you could speak?
Absolutely, because we signed in and we said yes.
There's a paper right next to it that you have to fill out.
I'm sorry, I saw the head turnings and I think people wanted to speak and maybe they were not aware of that.
So can we just stand at ease?
We're all the same
What's that?
issue too.
We just stand at ease and wait, or they can fill it out after they speak, is that fine?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, you have to fill it out ahead of time.
I don't know, and nobody called and talked to me, so I don't
No,
know who they
I think we
called.
should, for the matter of the record, have it filled out ahead of time. So if whoever wants to start can just be first and turn it into you, Teresa, so you have it for the record to write it down.
That's fine.
And then pass it to me, and then they can just continue to fill out.
Okay.
So whoever wants to go first, fill it out first and hand it to Teresa.
Fill this out first.
I'll hand it to the deputy, deputy will hand it to Teresa.
Yeah, I started seeing all the heads turning and I thought. I didn't want people thinking that you can't speak, that's all.
No, but you missed it. I think you mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting.
She did,
I
and
say
it's
it
right
at every
next to where
meeting.
you sign in too, so it's not.
Yeah, that's what I
Say it
thought.
at every meeting.
I wasn't paying attention. I thought you did, yeah.
Well, maybe no one was.
If he wants to. Thanks for letting us do that.
Yeah, no problem.
I was gonna speak, but Matt told me I couldn't.
No, jeez, no. That's the Rick Pushoni role, the Rick
You're
Pushoni.
gonna listen to
Listen to
Matt?
Matt?
You're listening?
That my job is completely different if I don't have to listen.
Nobody listens to me. Come on, Rick, you know that.
Till I hear a yes, then I'm like, oh, okay, I'll listen.
Hey, Matt, I told my wife I'm gonna show her what our political structure is like in the county. We're gonna start.
Start here, okay.
Okay, Chief Reese, Chief Hamner.
Hi, Commissioners.
Hi.
I'm Chief Robert Handler with the Oberlin Fire Department. We provide fire protection for the city of Oberlin and a good portion of New Russia Township. I stand before you today to express not only my concern, but the concern of many residents that travel Russia Road that intersects Oberlin Road. Last week, our department responded to yet another horrendous motor vehicle crash at that particular intersection. Upon our arrival, one person was already dead. We were able to extricate 2 other critically injured victims from their mangled vehicle. Unfortunately, they also died later on. On September 12th, we responded to yet another horrendous crash at Russia Road and Oberlin Road. A crash that forever changed the lives of one particular family. They were actually going to be here today, but they have to be in a Cleveland clinic going through rehab at this very time. That crash occurred 1 month ago from today. This year alone, we have responded to over 8 motor vehicle crashes at this particular intersection. We responded to 3 crashes there last year and 5 the year before that. Although this may not seem like a lot of accidents when compared to other high-frequency accident areas, the accidents that do occur here are generally horrendous. In the 26 years that I've been on the department, the worst crashes that I've ever been to have been at this intersection. As the state routes 58 and 113 become more congested, people use these rural roads as a quicker means to their destination. This results in high-speed, high-impact type crashes that claim the lives of 3 innocent victims last week. Over the years, stop signs have been added. They even flash now. They have not helped. Traffic lights, the little flashing traffic light, when it's up and not destroyed by a car crashing in the pole and knocking the light down, they have not helped. The rumple strips in the road, they have not helped. Something more needs done at this intersection. A 4-way traffic light, a roundabout, but something needs to be installed and soon. I've spoken to many residents, even the New Russia Township trustees, and we are all in favor of making some type of change at this intersection. If there's anything, I mean anything, that I can do to expedite this project, please let me know. Thank you.
No, thank you. I came up on the one last week with the truck. I was in a truck that was horrendous. And I was there, I actually was at the other one. And that's why when I drove up, I'm like, what's going on out here? So my understanding is, because that's a county road, I think, wouldn't it be the county engineer first that we need to talk to? Do you believe?
Yeah, well,
What can we do with that intersection? Because I drive by it with the corn now, because the corn's so high. I know what's going on. Maybe you know more, but I'm sitting there driving. I'm always looking, and you can't see until you're on it. Because I'm doing that too. I'm avoiding Route 2, and that's the way I go into Elyria now.
Right.
And those corn, it just hides that intersection.
The cars traveling on Russia Road, they can't see cars that aren't going
Right.
to stop, and they don't have time to react until it's too late. And we're seeing some very horrendous crashes at this
We
intersection.
have somebody who's willing to like take the bull by the horn. So what's,
yeah, I think, some of this, and Chief, you probably understand that the state and what the county can do as far as signage and things like that is set forth by the state. The rules are pretty specific. But we can certainly talk to the county engineer and see what options are available. And I can make that phone call. If you want to talk to me after the meeting and I'll get some details, I'll talk to the county engineer and see what options that they can look at under the law.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you for coming in.
Chief,
and
there's
sharing.
a number of ways that this could be looked at. As you pointed out, the county engineer.
Yeah.
Obviously, we need to have ODOT in on the discussion.
Right, yeah, there's a book that's pretty specific about what the county
Right.
engineer can do, but we can start there. And
Right.
see,
Right, and, we can certainly see if the WACA can take a look at it as well. So, and I would also urge you to get in touch with your legislators because they definitely get a direct ear when it comes to ODOT stepping up and taking a look at it. Highway Patrol probably wants to weigh in
Yeah.
as well, too.
After-
So there's many, many parties involved here, but I'm certainly, willing to follow up with you and assist in any way possible, as is this board, I'm sure.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I didn't read over the whole thing because I thought we only had one speaker, so I'm just going to go in the order that they were received up here and just state your name and address clearly for the record. The next person speaking will be Kim Poland.
Good morning. My name's Kim Poland. I live at 44625 Russia Road. It's Elyria, 44035. I'm here the same reason. The chief is here. I'm the first house east of Oberlin Road on Russia. The number of accidents that have been there is, in our opinion, in our neighborhood, it's way too many. I have been in touch with the engineer's office for over 2 years, off and on, because I go through that intersection 4 to 6 times a day. I had a son that was getting ready to start driving. There's a lot of us in the neighborhood that have kids getting ready to start driving. The conversations I've had with them, there used to be rumble strips on the Oberlin northbound, so south of Russia. They're gone. The ones heading south on Oberlin are still there. I've asked, why were they removed? They've dug through their paperwork. They've talked to other engineers that have been there for up to 30 years. They says there's no record of rumble strips ever being there. I can hear them in my house because I don't have air conditioning, so my windows are open in the summertime. I can hear them. They've repaved the road. So it wasn't the last time they repaved it, but the time before they were paved over. We were waiting for them to come back. They didn't come back. But they say they have no record of them. That was a couple years ago when I was talking to them. I've asked about possibly reducing the speed. They can only reduce the speed 15% of the average speed that people travel. So we all know that people aren't driving 55 on Oberlin Road. I've heard recently a couple people have been pulled over for going 95 and 105. So if you try to reduce it 15%, you can't even get to 55, and that's where we are. Majority of the accidents that are happening there are people heading north on Oberlin, not stopping. So I do know that there's corn there on the corner. It's high, you can't see. It's scary to drive through there. But again, it's the people heading north on Oberlin, for whatever reason they aren't stopping. We would like to have the rumble strips put back in. They told me last week we'd like to entertain that idea, but we won't. Last week they explained to me, the county engineers, that they did more research. There were rumble strips there a few years ago, but they were only there for a week. I don't know where they're coming up with this information. The accidents that have been happening the last few, I guess there's been a total of 4 deaths in the last 5 years there. The one accident he talked about was our neighbor, the ones that can't be here today. Their accident doesn't count towards the change of that intersection because it has to be failure to yield, not failure to stop. I know there's rules that got to come down from the state, and they've explained that to me, but at some point in time, I feel like common sense needs to come into play, and if there was an accident there that warranted rumble strips 10, 20 years ago, what happened that they can miraculously disappear? They need to come back. I've been told as of November 3rd, it will be a 4-way stop. The engineers told me that. They said Friday they were putting out a news release. I've yet to see it. I've asked, can you put the rumble strips back in? Because
They're still on
it's still the people traveling north on Oberlin that aren't stopping, whether it's failure to stop, which was what that accident was from our friends around the corner, versus failure to yield. It's the people heading north not stopping. They said they won't do that. If this does not work, they will put a roundabout in, is what they told me. I asked what criteria will determine that it's not working, and they said they will just know. That was the answer that I got.
Ma'am, you're at the
So-
3-minute mark.
Can I ask you a question, Commissioner? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you tell me who, I just sent one of the people I contacted, the engineers, in the email while you're talking. Can you tell me who you spoke to?
Sean.
Pardon?
His name is Sean.
DeFalla?
I don't know his last name. They just always say you need to talk to Sean. And I've talked to him numerous times in the last few years. So it's not just because our neighbor got into an accident and now all of a sudden we're showing up. I've been trying for years. So we need your guys' help to support us
It just
and
gives me
get,
a place to start, and then I know who to talk to, but I'll
Right.
talk to Sean.
and getting the most done, not just the simplest thing. We need more done than just, and then they also said, real quickly, the first couple months when they make this change, they know there's gonna be more accidents because it's gonna be new. So then after that, they'll start watching to see if it's working or not. So again, we're gonna have more accidents. I just feel like more can be done than what we're trying as a community to try to help make it safe for everybody, not just the neighbors.
Now, I grew up in the same, there's nothing worse than growing up in that type of situation as a child. And, lived there till I left at age 24. And our intersection was constantly, I was in high school looking at bodies.
Yeah.
And finally, let's see, we moved in 1960. My parents bought it in 64, 65. 3 years ago, they put lights in and stops and an
Yeah.
extra lane.
I
And so
talked to
I don't,
state-
I hear, what I would like to know is, we're the budget authority over the engineer. There's got to be a way. We're in charge of the infrastructure, the sewers, the roads. It comes through us. Can't we use that leverage to say rumble strips?
Well, I think, I think right now, and lawyers always love to talk off the top of their head, right? So I apologize.
No, it's all right.
I think there's an underappreciation of how involved ODOT is
Yeah.
in these types of decisions. It is, and I don't mean to make light of what you're saying, and I don't mean to blow you off, and we'll get an answer, and I'll give it to the commissioners. I have been involved, since I've been doing this job for 10 years, I've been involved in these situations before. ODOT, there are a lot of things that have to happen and a lot of criteria that have to be met before you change anything. Stoplights, stop signs, yield signs, caution signs, rumble strips, if I'm not mistaken, is particularly a big one because it changes the way that the cars go over the roads. So I don't think this is necessarily just something at the engineer's level. This may be something that is at the state level.
Right.
But we will find that out.
And that's why I ask, why were they removed? Like, did we all of a sudden, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I'm asking that. Like, there has to be a reason they were put in. There needs to be a reason they were taken out, and they have no record of that. But their stories keep changing, and that makes
Yeah,
it
and
frustrating.
I will tell you, I worked with Sean for a long time, and I'm saying this not just because Sean monitors these and watches them. Sean is a good engineer. He takes this stuff very seriously. So does his boss, Bob Kleiber. They do very good work in general. The story's changing, it's probably because there were things that were done during certain construction projects where you can do something on a temporary basis, put something out, and then it has to be removed when ODOT passes on the road, and they probably missed it. I've known those guys for 10 years. I do not think that anybody's trying to intentionally be deceptive with you, and I'm sure they're trying to get to the right answer.
It just feels like, after a while, you feel like they're making you sound like a liar when you're like, I live there, I hear the rumble strips, and then they say, no, you don't.
Yeah, I
So
don't think
it's,
I can speak for Sean. I don't think Sean intends to say that to you, and I'll apologize for him on that behalf, but
Right.
we'll get into it.
okay, I appreciate your time.
I would just add that ODOT carries a lot of weight.
ODOT carries all the weight.
Yeah, not a lot, all, correct.
Yeah. We had a case just 7, 8 years ago, there was an obstructed sign and there was a death. And it took, I want to say, and it was obstructed by overhanging foliage. I want to say it took more than a year to get the approval to cut back the foliage to unobstruct the sign. It's, you always don't want people to pass the buck, right? Because that's not what this is about. But it's a very complex system, and the road systems are very complex, and ODOT has very specific rules. And we have to be able to work within those and do the prep work necessary to get the changes done.
So do you want Dan to follow up with you, or?
Absolutely. If there's anything I can do to help the situation,
Or you wanna talk to the chief?
I'll give you my card. I'll give some of you my card, and you can contact me next week, and we'll be.
Because I've called for years, so I'm trying, this is my next.
Yeah, I will warn you, I'll be on vacation Friday and Monday, but if you call me Tuesday or Wednesday, I will have an answer for you. Or I have some information for you by then. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming in and speaking.
Okay, the next speaker is Ralph Sudina. Welcome, Ralph.
My name is Ralph Sedina. I live at 11158 Oberlin Road, Oberlin 44074. I'm here about the intersection up there. It's right up the street from me. It's like 7/10 of a mile from my house. My house is in the dip in there, and people are flying there up there. I've got a watch coming out of my driveway. If I'm turning left, head north, I look to my left, I don't see any cars coming. I pull out in the road, I look in my rearview mirror, and there's a car right on my tail, because they are flying up Oberlin Road. And being down in the dip, I've got a hard time seeing them. And I've had numerous cars in the ditch over there across the street from my house in a ditch. Last year, I had a car upside down in my front yard because it hit the ditch and flipped over because the guy was flying down the road. But the intersection up there is terrible. You go up there, and the cornfield to the left, you can't see there. So if you do stop, which I do all the time, I'm a truck driver, I'm kind of by the rules of the road, but you have to stop and pull into the intersection to see past the cornfield to the west. Something's got to be done about the cornfield. That farmer, cut that cornfield back 10 feet so people can see. I don't know what the rules are on that, ODOT or whatever has to do with the cornfield, but somebody has to tell that farmer, that's got to be cut back. That's a road obstruction. You can't see the intersection through there. The other points of issue, our neighbors were hit. He was stopped. Somebody was flying up the road and ran into the back end. Luckily, the guy at the last second veered. Otherwise, the three in the car, husband, wife, and son, would all be dead. It was lucky they got. I went and looked at the car at the junkyard, and you could see where the other car had embedded right in the back. It actually blew the gas tank out of the car. Luckily, the gas tank did not explode. It blew it out and ended up out there. But the roof of the car had tire marks on it because when he hit, he went over it and rolled 4 times in the road. So he was flying. I don't know what the speed was because there was no attempt to stop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Have you noticed any, this is just speeding, isn't it? It's not alcohol or anything, Chief?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the toxicology report. No, I'm just saying, it seems like it's more of a speed and stop sign issue. It's not necessarily alcohol. Because these are during the day, so, yeah.
And it's always Oberlin Road, heading north.
Okay.
The one accident that he's referring to happened at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think I,
Excuse, yeah, when our neighbor was hit, it was 10:30 on a Sunday morning, and we've heard through the grapevine that the driver of the other car was drunk. He'd had an argument with his grandson in the morning, so he decided to go out and get drink.
okay,
He says, apparently, the way I understand it, was his 4th DUI.
okay. Alleged. I'll help you out. We'll say alleged until the truth comes out.
I know when I spoke with the coroner this morning, he told me he was very alarmed by the increasing number of auto fatalities. And, just seems like people are more aggressive in their driving these days, and everybody seems to be in a hurry. I know when we would work on construction zones in Columbus, and you increase the fines and put all the signage up so you don't have, workers in those construction zones on the highway, getting hit or killed. People just will not slow down. But we will definitely drill down on it with ODOT, and if need be, we'll get the legislators involved so they get ODOT's ear and get it addressed.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Judy Emmerich. Welcome, Judy.
I am Judy Emmerich. I've lived on Oberlin Road since 1969. I lived a half a mile south of Russia Road until 9 years ago. Now I'm the first house south of Russia Road on the east side of the road, so I'm 500 feet or so from Russia Road. I was really dismayed when Kim told me that when she talked to the county engineer that they said there was never any rumble strips there. She said the people in the office had been there 30 years and said there were never rumble strips there. That's a lie, because I've went down them for so many years. And when I moved 9 years ago to my house at 10589 Oberlin Road, the sign that said rumble strips ahead was in my yard, and I had to mow around it to mow my lawn north of my driveway. So I'm mainly here to confirm, Kim, that there were rumble strips there. And if the rumble strips are north of Russia Road, with the law and ODOT and all that, there should be no reason they can't be south of the intersection as well. And I've noticed, been paying a lot of attention since our neighbor was hurt, some stop signs have solar lights that have the flashing lights. And after that's installed, the solar, you know, it's not a cost. And I think maybe something like that could be put on. I noticed on 58 north of 113, where it has stoplight ahead, that stoplight ahead sign has the flashing solar lights. And so maybe, because we do have a arrow, you know, stop sign ahead, so maybe the solar lights could be put on that. And concerning the cornfield, I agree that it blocks the view, but these people speeding and going north, not stopping, the cornfield really doesn't have anything to do with them not stopping. It's just not paying attention and going. And when I'm out in the yard, which I am a lot mowing and working in my yard, there's a lot of people that go through there without stopping that are lucky enough they haven't hit somebody on Russia Road. So I just want, I have a history since '69, and I know there were rumble strips there. Thank you for your time.
No, I get, it's very scary driving east on Russia Road. That's why I mentioned the court file. Yeah.
Sirens, so every time I look to see if the sirens are going north, south, east, or west, and lately they're right there.
Yeah, it's not as scary until I actually, seeing both of those accidents in person, it was like, that's what's scary. You know?
Chief Amner's a longtime friend, and we go to football games for Oberlin, and I'll say, well, I saw you were out at a corner again. And we've had 4 accidents there in like 5.5 weeks. We had these 2 really serious ones, but there are other ones as well.
Yeah, I think
One ran
the
over the
flashing
stop
light.
sign. And
Thank you, ma'am.
Appreciate you guys coming in and sharing. Maybe something can happen quicker than 2 years of phone calls, you know, so.
You all set, Commissioner? Okay. Moving on to reports, the Interim County Administrator, Mr. Rob Weber, is on excused absence this week. Assistant County Prosecutor, Mr. Dan Petticord, do you have a report for us?
I do not, but I do have one piece of current litigation that we can discuss in executive session.
Okay. Okay, F Commissioner's report. Commissioner Moore, do you have a report today?
Yeah, last week after, you know, we did the proclamation for the manufacturing, I guess it used to be day, now it's a month. And we took our community development group with us, our team, and they were well received. I introduced our team to say to a lot of the manufacturers and the companies that were there that this is who you need to talk to if you need any guidance in which to go through the minutia of government. So we were well received. So it was a nice event and got to meet a lot of old friends. So as I was telling Commissioner Lundy, within the last 60 days, I got to speak after Congressman Jordan, and then I got to speak after Congressman Capter. Kind of a unique experience. So I do appreciate allowing me to go and speak on behalf of the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Lundy?
Thank you, Madam President. Had the chance to catch up with NOACA this past week. They have a consultant that's working on lakefront connectivity, looking at ways in which we can better get from community to community along our lakefront and how we can stimulate more economic activity. So had a chance to meet with the consultants there to review the various lakefront locations throughout Lorraine County. Also, at our NOACA meeting on Friday, there was a lot of discussion around van pulling and trying to launch a pilot project working with manufacturing community and a lot of our plants to see if we can work out some van sharing and van pulling to help get employees to work. Saturday, had the opportunity to go to the Italian American Veterans offices over there on Oberlin for their Festa Italiana, and that was great. Had some really good pasta and listened to some great music, and I had a chance to have some really good conversations, so congratulations to them. That was a very, very nice event. Our community protection team met again yesterday. Latest reports indicating that the vaccination rate in the county is over 60% now. The Vax to School program with students is working apparently very well with junior high and high school students. Mercy was reporting, you may have seen the story in the paper, they're very concerned about the very high number of COVID cases that are ending up in their emergency rooms, 75% full. And the folks who are very sick are COVID cases and unvaccinated, and very alarmed by those who are getting sick in the age group of 40s and 50s. Also, the health department wants to remind everybody, please make sure that you get out there and get your flu shot as well. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Lundy. I have no report. Our next item is G, the clerk's report. Madam Clerk.
Tuesday, October 19th at 9:30, we will have the band house ditch hearing. Wednesday, October 20th at 2, we'll have the Records Commission. And on Thursday, October 21st, starts our budget hearings.
Do you want to discuss next Wednesday's meeting, Commissioners?
I know we've been asked by the Lorain County Mayors and Managers Association to update the mayors at their meeting next Wednesday morning. I believe that starts around 8:30. They're thinking we should be wrapped up in about an hour, but since our meeting normally starts at 9:30, if the board would be willing to consider maybe pushing our start time back to maybe 10:30 next Wednesday.
10:30 sounds good to me.
That would work for me.
Commissioner Moore.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So just next week's meeting starts at 10:30 in the morning.
Right, and we'll be making a presentation of the mayors. I believe it's a community college.
In regards to the levies, correct?
Regard to, I think they want to talk about the Rescue Act plan
Oh,
as
the
well
money
too.
we have?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Shocking.
So yes, I would be good. Do we need an official motion?
Do we need a
then? No.
motion or anything, Dan?
Notification.
I think we're good by voice vote.
Okay.
All righty. We had 3 yeses on that. All set, Madam Clerk?
I am.
Okay, next item is H, Board Correspondence. I move to waive the reading of the Board Correspondence due to the executive session we have scheduled.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung.
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
At this time, I move to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel issues, employment, new hires, and current litigation. Mr. Petticord.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung.
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
We have returned from executive session and our meeting is back in session. I move to approve the personnel summary sheet.
Second?
Motion was made by Hung, seconded by Lundy. Any discussion from the board? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hung?
Yes.
Commissioner Lundy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Okay, meeting announcements. The next regularly scheduled board meeting is Wednesday, October 20th at 9:30 a.m.
10:30.
10:30 a.m.
Sorry.
I apologize. Is there any further business from this board?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yeah, we got, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but we did make some pretty major decisions today. I think it was a positive meeting. The veterans did quite well, but I think that's gonna be very good for the community. I'm not gonna go into detail on the personnel summary sheet, but I believe the individual that we're talking about, I think he deserves a clean slate. There's been a lot of drama and chaos here. So I'd like to make a motion to remove Michelle Hung as president of this board. And it looks like it died for lack of a second, so thank you.
All right, all done? Since there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned.